The sun was setting at Atlanta International Airport as passengers for Flight 237 to Los Angeles waited impatiently at Gate C-22. The digital board flashed another 30-minute delay, making it the third one that day. People sighed, some rolled their eyes, others angrily tapped at their phones to update family members or rearrange pickups. No one was more stressed than Diane, a flight attendant with graying hair tucked neatly under her uniform cap. 15 years she'd been doing this job, but days like today made her question her career choices. The plane had mechanical issues that morning, the replacement crew arrived late, and now they were facing bad weather on the West Coast. Her feet already hurt, and they hadn't even started boarding. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the gate agent, "we will now begin boarding Flight 237 to Los Angeles, starting with our premium members and passengers needing special assistance." Diane took her position at the jet bridge entrance, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her tired eyes. Her mind was elsewhere, on her son's college tuition bill that had arrived that morning, on her elderly mother who had fallen last week, on the argument she'd had with her husband before leaving for work. The premium passengers filed through, most barely acknowledging her rehearsed greeting. Diane checked each boarding pass mechanically, her movements automatic after years of practice. Now boarding all remaining passengers, called the gate agent as the final boarding began. That's when the commotion started at the back of the line. A woman was rushing toward the gate, pulling a carry-on bag that kept tipping over. She wore a wrinkled blouse beneath an expensive-looking blazer, her hair pulled back in a messy bun that suggested she'd been running her fingers through it all day. "Wait, please, I'm on this flight," the woman called out, waving her phone in the air. As she approached, Diane noticed she was talking rapidly into her earpiece. "I understand the concerns, Dr. Patel, but I've reviewed the scans myself. We need to move forward with the procedure tomorrow morning. The bleeding could worsen if we wait." The woman reached the podium, still deep in conversation, and slid her phone across to show her mobile boarding pass. Diane felt a flash of irritation. This happened all the time, people thinking they were too important to follow basic courtesy and end their calls during the boarding process. "Ma'am," Diane said firmly. "Ma'am, I need you to end your call and present your boarding pass properly." The woman held up one finger in the universal "just a moment" gesture and continued speaking. "Yes, I'll be there first thing. The patient's family has been informed of the risks, but—" "Ma'am," Diane said louder, feeling her patience snap like a dry twig. "The day had been too long, too hard. You need to end your call now." The woman looked startled, finally making eye contact with Diane. "I apologize, but this is extremely urgent. I'm Dr. Wilson, and I need to—" "I don't care who you are," Diane interrupted, her voice rising. "The rules apply to everyone. End the call or step out of line." Behind them, passengers were watching the scene unfold. Some looked annoyed at the delay, others seemed entertained by the drama, and a few were already pulling out phones to record. Dr. Wilson covered her earpiece and whispered urgently, "This is about a 10-year-old patient with a brain bleed. I'll be done in 30 seconds. Please." But Diane had reached her breaking point. When Dr. Wilson turned slightly to continue her call, Diane reached for the phone, intending to take it. Dr. Wilson instinctively pulled back. In the struggle that followed, Diane's hand connected with Dr. Wilson's face with a sharp sound that silenced the entire gate area. Time seemed to freeze. Dr. Wilson stood perfectly still, her hand slowly rising to touch her cheek. The call had disconnected. Nearby passengers gasped. Someone muttered, "Did you see that?" Another voice said clearly, "She slapped her." Diane's anger vanished instantly, replaced by horror at what she'd done. In 15 years, she had never, ever laid hands on a passenger. Dr. Wilson looked directly into Diane's eyes. Her voice was calm but carried throughout the now silent gate area. "My name is Dr. Maya Wilson. I'm the chief of neurosurgery at Angeles Memorial Hospital, and I was on a call about a child who might die without the surgery I'm flying to Los Angeles to perform." Diane felt the blood drain from her face as she realized exactly who she had just slapped. The slap seemed to echo through the entire airport terminal. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then suddenly, everyone moved at once. "She hit her," someone shouted from the back of the line. "I got that on video," called another passenger, holding up a phone. Dr. Wilson stood perfectly still, her hand touching the spot on her cheek that was quickly turning red. Her eyes never left Diane's face. They weren't angry eyes. They were tired, shocked, and oddly calm. Diane's hand flew to her mouth. What had she done? 15 years of dealing with difficult passengers, 15 years of keeping her cool through delays and complaints and entitled behavior, and now this. Her career flashed before her eyes, gone in an instant of lost control. I didn't mean to, Diane stammered, but the words dried up in her throat. A tall man in a business suit stepped forward. "I'm calling airport security," he announced, already dialing on his phone. The gate agent rushed over, eyes wide with panic. "What happened?" "Diane, what's going on?" But before Diane could answer, Dr. Wilson spoke. Her voice was low, but carried clearly through the now silent gate area. "Your employee just assaulted me," she said simply. "I was on an emergency call about a pediatric patient who needs brain surgery tomorrow morning, the surgery I'm flying to Los Angeles to perform." The gate agent's mouth fell open. "Oh my God. Dr. Wilson, I am so terribly sorry. Let me call my supervisor immediately." As if a dam had broken, other passengers began shouting. "I saw the whole thing. That was completely unprovoked. She should be fired on the spot." Phones were out everywhere now, recording the aftermath. Diane knew those videos would be online within minutes. Her stomach twisted into a cold, hard knot. Dr. Wilson raised her hands, trying to calm the growing chaos. "Please, everyone. I still need to get to Los Angeles as quickly as possible. My patient needs me." A woman wearing scrubs pushed through the crowd. "I'm a nurse. Let me look at your face." Dr. Wilson shook her head. "I'm fine, thank you. It's just a red mark." 2 security officers arrived, moving quickly through the crowd of passengers. "What's the situation here?" the taller one asked, looking between Diane and Dr. Wilson. Before anyone could answer, a distinguished-looking older man with silver hair stepped forward. "I'm Tom Reynolds, Atlantic Airways terminal manager. Dr. Wilson, please come with me. We'll get you on the plane immediately and sort this out." He turned to the security officers. "This passenger needs to board urgently. She's a surgeon traveling for an emergency case." As Tom led Dr. Wilson toward the jet bridge, he threw a dark look at Diane. "Wait in my office," he said in a low voice. "Don't speak to anyone." Diane felt like she might throw up. The room seemed to be spinning around her. As Dr. Wilson walked past, she paused briefly. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, so only Diane could hear, "I understand what stress can do to a person. But understanding doesn't erase consequences." Then she was gone, walking down the jet bridge to the plane, leaving Diane standing alone before a crowd of angry, disapproving faces. The security officers flanked Diane. "Ma'am, you need to come with us," one said firmly. As they escorted her through the terminal, Diane could feel eyes following her. An employee who recognized her uniform looked shocked. A young child pointed and asked his mother what the lady had done wrong. In the terminal manager's office, Diane sank into a chair, her legs no longer able to support her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her husband asking how her day was going. She couldn't even bring herself to look at it. On the desk, a computer screen showed flight information. Flight 237 to Los Angeles, delayed 3 hours, now boarding. Carrying a world-famous neurosurgeon to save a child's life. A surgeon she had just slapped in front of 50 witnesses with recording phones. Outside the office, she could hear people talking in urgent, hushed voices. "Do you know who Dr. Wilson is? She's not just any doctor. She won that big award from the president last year. She's on TV all the time talking about her work with kids. They're saying she's flying out to save some little girl's life." Diane covered her face with her hands. In one thoughtless moment, she had assaulted one of the most respected doctors in the country. A black woman rushing to save a child's life. And it had all been caught on camera. The door opened and Tom Reynolds walked in, his face grim. "The plane is departing," he said. "Now tell me exactly what happened and why I shouldn't fire you on the spot." Diane opened her mouth, but found she had no defense to offer. Just like that, her 15-year career was over. Dr. Wilson sat in first class, staring out the window as the plane finally took off. The seat beside her remained empty. A small courtesy from the airline after what had happened. Her cheek no longer stung, but she could still feel the weight of all those eyes on her. Throughout her career, she had grown used to being stared at, often as the only black woman in the operating room, at medical conferences, on boards of directors. But this was different. She pulled out her phone to switch it to airplane mode and noticed 23 new message notifications. Word was spreading fast. She sighed and turned off the phone completely, leaning back against the headrest. Right now, she needed to focus on tomorrow's surgery, not on what had just happened at the gate. Back at the airport, Diane sat across from Tom Reynolds and two women she'd never met before, one from Human Resources and one from the airline's legal department. They had been questioning her for almost an hour. Her throat was dry, and her uniform felt too tight, like it was slowly suffocating her. "Let's go through it one more time," said the legal woman, whose name Diane had already forgotten in her panicked state. "You say Dr. Wilson was being uncooperative." Diane shook her head. "No, not exactly. She was on a phone call, and," her voice trailed off. "And you decided to physically assault her?" Tom's voice was cold. "I didn't mean to hit her," Diane whispered. "I was trying to get her attention, to get her to end the call." The HR woman raised an eyebrow. "By slapping her face?" "No. I reached for her phone, and somehow, Diane's words sounded hollow even to her own ears. There was no excuse, and she knew it. The legal woman slid a tablet across the desk. "This video is already online. It has over 50,000 views and climbing." Diane felt sick as she looked at the screen. Someone had captured the whole thing clearly, her frustrated expression, Dr. Wilson's attempt to finish her call, Diane's hand making contact with the doctor's face. Even worse were the comments beneath the video. "Fire this woman now." Another example of a black professional being disrespected just for doing her job. "Dr. Wilson saved my daughter's life 2 years ago. She's a literal angel, and this is how she gets treated." The HR woman cleared her throat. "Atlantic Airways has a zero-tolerance policy for physical contact with passengers. You know this, Diane." Diane nodded numbly. "We're placing you on unpaid administrative leave, effective immediately. Please surrender your ID badge and any company property before you leave." Tom looked at her with disappointment. 15 years, Diane. 15 years with a spotless record, and now this. As Diane handed over her badge with trembling fingers, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, a text from her neighbor. "Is this you in this video? It's all over Facebook." Meanwhile, 30,000 feet above Arizona, Dr. Wilson finally answered a call from the hospital's public relations director. "Maya, are you okay? We're getting calls from reporters about some incident at the airport." Dr. Wilson rubbed her temples. "I'm fine, Lisa. Just focus on keeping reporters away from the hospital tomorrow. My patient deserves privacy." "People are calling you a hero for how calmly you handled it," Lisa continued. "The hospital's social media accounts are flooded with supportive messages." Dr. Wilson sighed. "I'm not interested in being anyone's hero. I just want to do my job." After hanging up, she pulled out the patient's medical files. 10-year-old Lily had been diagnosed with a rare brain tumor. Most surgeons wouldn't touch it, but Dr. Wilson had developed a new technique that might save her. That's what mattered now, not some viral video, not some flight attendant who'd lost her temper. 6 hours later, as Dr. Wilson's plane landed in Los Angeles, Diane sat alone in her small apartment, staring at her TV in horror. Every local news channel was running the story. Her face was everywhere, her name mentioned by reporters who talked about the shocking assault on renowned neurosurgeon Dr. Maya Wilson. Her phone rang for the 100th time, her sister calling again. She finally answered. "Diane? Oh, thank God. Are you okay?" Diane couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. "I'm coming over," her sister said. "Don't watch any more news. Don't look at social media. Just hang tight." As her sister hung up, Diane's email pinged. It was from a reporter. "Ms. Baker, I'm writing a story about the incident involving Dr. Wilson and would like to get your side of the story." She deleted it, then watched as 5 more identical emails appeared. Her phone buzzed with texts from people she hadn't spoken to in years. "Is this really you? What were you thinking? Did you know who she was when you hit her? Diane turned off her phone and curled up on the couch. How had her life imploded so completely in just a few hours? She had no job, was becoming the internet's villain of the day, and had assaulted someone who saved children's lives for a living. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to the empty room, tears finally breaking free. "I'm so sorry." At that exact moment, Dr. Wilson was washing her hands, preparing to meet little Lily and her parents to discuss tomorrow's life-changing surgery. As she looked in the mirror, she noticed the faint red mark on her cheek was almost gone. What wasn't gone was her memory of the desperation in that flight attendant's eyes just before everything went wrong. Dr. Wilson recognized that look. She'd seen it in the mirror during her residency, during her divorce, during the months her mother was dying. The look of someone drowning in stress, about to break. She shook her head and reached for a paper towel, one problem at a time. First, save Lily. Then maybe, just maybe, she'd think about what to do about Diane Baker. By morning, the video had exploded. Over 2 million views. News anchors across the country were discussing it. Social media was on fire. Hashtag Justice for Wilson was trending nationwide, alongside hashtag Fire Diane Baker. Diane hadn't slept. Her sister Patty had stayed the night, answering calls and checking messages, acting as a buffer between Diane and the growing storm. Around 3 a.m., someone had posted Diane's home address online. By sunrise, Patty had convinced her to pack a bag and leave. "You can stay at my place," Patty said, throwing clothes into a duffel bag. "At least until this dies down." "If it dies down," Diane mumbled. She hadn't eaten, hadn't showered. She sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through her phone, reading comment after comment from strangers who now hated her. A notification popped up. Atlantic Airways had released an official statement. "We are aware of the incident involving one of our flight attendants and Dr. Maya Wilson. We have placed the employee on administrative leave pending investigation. Atlantic Airways does not condone this behavior and is cooperating fully with authorities. We have reached out to Dr. Wilson to express our deepest apologies." Diane felt a fresh wave of nausea. Authorities? Am I going to be arrested? Patty grabbed the phone from her hands. "Stop looking at this stuff. It's not helping. We need to get you out of here." As they headed for the door, Diane's phone rang again. This time it was a number she recognized, Mike Shen from the Flight Attendants Union. "Diane, I've been trying to reach you. The airline wants a meeting this afternoon." "Are they firing me?" Mike hesitated. "It doesn't look good, but I'll be there with you. Don't say anything to anyone else, okay? Especially not the press." Across town, in a sterile hospital waiting room, a family huddled together. Lily's parents and grandparents had been there all night, watching the clock, praying, and occasionally checking their phones. Lily's mother looked up as a nurse entered. "Dr. Wilson is ready to see you now. She's just finished prepping for surgery." They'd followed the nurse down a long hallway to a small conference room. Dr. Wilson stood when they entered, her face calm and focused despite having been awake for nearly 24 hours. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," she said, shaking their hands. "Lily's scans look good. We're still on schedule for noon." Lily's father cleared his throat nervously. "We saw what happened at the airport. Are you sure you're okay to operate today?" Dr. Wilson's expression didn't change. "What happened yesterday has no bearing on Lily's care. I'm completely focused on her surgery." Mrs. Carter reached out and touched Dr. Wilson's arm. "We reported those terrible comments on the video. The ones defending that flight attendant. What she did was inexcusable." "Thank you for your concern," Dr. Wilson said gently, "but right now, let's focus on Lily." As they discussed the procedure, Dr. Wilson's phone vibrated in her pocket. She'd been getting calls all morning, from talk shows, news programs, even the governor's office. She'd ignored them all, but this one was from the hospital's chief administrator. She excused herself briefly to take it. "Maya, have you seen the news? The airline just fired that flight attendant." Dr. Wilson frowned. That was fast. They had no choice. The PR nightmare was too big. "Listen, after Lily's surgery, we need to discuss how to handle the press. People want to hear from you." "I have nothing to say," Dr. Wilson replied. "Can we talk tomorrow? I'm with Lily's family now." Back at Patty's apartment, Diane sat stunned, staring at the email from Atlantic Airways Human Resources. It was official. After 15 years, she was terminated, effective immediately. Benefits would end in 30 days. Mike had tried his best at the meeting, arguing that Diane's spotless record should count for something, that she deserved a second chance. But the airline executives wouldn't budge. The video had been viewed 5 million times. Hashtags were trending. Celebrities were tweeting about it. Atlantic Airways stock had dropped 3 points that morning. "What do I do now?" Diane whispered. Patty sat beside her. "We'll figure it out, maybe once this blows over." "It's not going to blow over," Diane cried, jumping to her feet. "I'm the woman who slapped Dr. Maya Wilson. Do you know what people are saying about me? That I'm racist, that I'm violent, that I should go to jail." "You made a mistake," Patty said. "A terrible mistake, but still." "A mistake that's going to follow me forever," Diane said, her voice breaking. "No airline will ever hire me again. I'll be lucky to get a job at all after this. Who wants to hire the woman from that video?" Her phone pinged with another email. She almost didn't look, but something made her check. It was from a producer at National Morning News, offering money for an exclusive interview to tell her side of the story. Diane laughed bitterly. "Now they want to hear my side. After they've already decided I'm the villain." As the sun set over Los Angeles, Dr. Wilson finally emerged from the operating room. 8 hours of delicate work, navigating through Lily's brain, removing the tumor piece by tiny piece. The surgery had been successful. Lily would live. Dr. Wilson stripped off her surgical gown, washed her hands, and went to deliver the good news to the waiting family. Their tears of joy, their hugs and thanks, this was why she did what she did. This moment made everything else worthwhile. As she finally headed to her hotel, bone-tired but satisfied, her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Dr. Wilson," said a voice she didn't recognize. "This is Robert Taylor from Atlantic Airways Executive Office. I want to personally apologize for what happened and let you know that Diane Baker has been terminated. We're also prepared to offer compensation for—" "Mr. Taylor," Dr. Wilson interrupted. "I appreciate your call, but I've just spent 8 hours operating on a child's brain. I'm going to sleep now. But before I do, I want to ask you something." "Of course," he said quickly. "Has anyone asked Ms. Baker what was happening in her life when she lost control yesterday?" There was silence on the other end of the line. "That's what I thought," Dr. Wilson said and hung up. 3 days after the slap that changed her life, Diane sat in her sister's tiny kitchen, staring at job listings on her laptop. None of them were in the airline industry. None of them were in customer service at all. She was looking at warehouse jobs, night shift security positions, anything where she might not be recognized. The news cycle had moved on to other stories, but the internet never forgot. Her name had become shorthand for Karen behavior in comment sections. Memes of her face were everywhere. She deleted all her social media accounts, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. "You need to eat something," Patty said, sliding a sandwich in front of her. Diane pushed it away. "I'm not hungry." Patty sat down across from her. "You can't keep punishing yourself forever." "Why not? Everyone else is." Diane closed the laptop. "Did you see that GoFundMe page someone set up for Dr. Wilson? To help recover from trauma. It's raised over $50,000. She's a millionaire surgeon. She doesn't need the money." "People want to show support," Patty said gently. "It's not really about the money." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "I made a terrible mistake. One mistake in 15 years. And now my whole life is ruined." The doorbell rang, startling them both. They weren't expecting anyone. Patty peeked through the curtains. "It's some delivery guy." She returned a moment later with a thick envelope. "It's for you, certified mail." Diane's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a letter from a law firm representing Atlantic Airways. The airline was considering legal action against her for damaging their reputation. They were calculating financial losses from the incident. "They're going to sue me?" Diane whispered, handing the letter to her sister. "I've already lost everything. What more do they want?" Patty read through the letter carefully. "This is just a threat. They're trying to scare you into staying quiet." "It's working," Diane said. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Dr. Wilson sat beside Lily's hospital bed, watching the little girl sleep. The surgery had been successful, but recovery would take time. Lily's parents had stepped out to get coffee, leaving Dr. Wilson alone with her thoughts. Her phone buzzed with yet another interview request. She turned them all down, but they kept coming. Everyone wanted to hear about the airport assault, as they were calling it. Nobody seemed interested in Lily's groundbreaking surgery or the new technique Dr. Wilson had developed that might help hundreds of other children. The hospital's PR director knocked softly on the door. "I'm not doing any interviews, Lisa," Dr. Wilson said without looking up. "That's not why I'm here," Lisa replied. "You asked me to look into Diane Baker's background." This got Dr. Wilson's attention. "Did you find anything?" Lisa handed her a folder. Nothing that excuses what she did, but it provides some context. Dr. Wilson opened the file and began reading. Diane's mother had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's 8 months ago. Her son had dropped out of college after a mental health crisis. Her husband had lost his job during COVID and never fully recovered financially. She'd been working double shifts to make ends meet. "The airline knew all this?" Dr. Wilson asked. Lisa nodded. It was all in her HR file, but they didn't consider any of it before firing her. Dr. Wilson closed the folder, her expression thoughtful. "Nobody's perfect, Lisa, especially under that kind of pressure." "Are you actually defending her?" Lisa asked, surprised. "No," Dr. Wilson said firmly. "What she did was wrong, but destroying her life doesn't fix anything." As Dr. Wilson drove home that evening, she made a decision. She picked up her phone and called her lawyer. Back at Patty's apartment, Diane was finally sleeping after days of insomnia. Patty sat in the living room, worried sick about her sister. The phone rang, and she answered quickly so it wouldn't wake Diane. "Is this Patricia Baker?" Diane Baker's sister asked in an unfamiliar voice. "Who's asking?" Patty replied cautiously. "My name is Grace Chen. I'm Dr. Maya Wilson's attorney. Dr. Wilson would like to speak with your sister." Patty nearly dropped the phone. "If you're calling about a lawsuit—" "No lawsuit," Grace interrupted. "Dr. Wilson has actually declined to press charges. She's concerned about the intensity of the public response to this incident." "She's concerned?" Patty couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. "My sister's whole life has fallen apart." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Then, that's precisely what Dr. Wilson would like to discuss. Would your sister be willing to meet privately? No media, no recordings, just the two of them talking." Patty glanced toward the bedroom where Diane was finally getting some rest. "Why would Dr. Wilson want to talk to my sister now?" "Dr. Wilson believes in second chances," Grace said simply. "And she thinks your sister deserves one." Diane arrived at the small coffee shop 20 minutes early. Dr. Wilson's lawyer had chosen this place carefully. A quiet spot in a neighborhood far from the airport, far from the hospital, far from anywhere they might be recognized. Diane had worn sunglasses and a baseball cap, feeling ridiculous but terrified of being spotted. She chose a table in the back corner, facing the wall. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. What was she supposed to say to the woman she had slapped? Sorry seemed pathetically inadequate. The airline's lawyers had warned her not to meet with Dr. Wilson at all, claiming it could be a trap to get her to admit guilt on record. But what choice did she have? Her life couldn't possibly get worse than it already was. The bell above the door jingled. Diane didn't turn around, but she knew. Something in the atmosphere of the small shop changed, a subtle shift as other customers recognized the famous doctor. "Miss Baker?" Diane looked up. Dr. Wilson stood beside her table, wearing simple jeans and a blue sweater. No designer clothes, no white coat, no entourage. Just a woman with tired eyes and a gentle smile. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," Dr. Wilson said, sitting down across from her. Diane stared at her hands. "I should be thanking you for not pressing charges, for even being willing to talk to me after what I did." A server approached, and Dr. Wilson ordered a black coffee. Diane couldn't bring herself to order anything. Her stomach was in knots. When they were alone again, Dr. Wilson leaned forward. "I want to understand what happened that day. Not what was captured on video. I was there for that part. I want to understand what led up to it." Diane swallowed hard. "Are you recording this conversation?" "No." Dr. Wilson said firmly. "This is just between us." Diane took a deep breath. "I've been a flight attendant for 15 years. I've dealt with drunk passengers, with people screaming in my face, with men trying to grab me. I never lost control before. Never." "So what was different that day?" Dr. Wilson asked quietly. The tears came then, silent and unstoppable. Diane wiped them away, embarrassed. "Everything. My mom has Alzheimer's. She moved in with us last year, but she needs more care than I can give her. My son dropped out of college because of depression, and the medical bills are piling up. My husband's business went under during COVID. We're drowning in debt." Dr. Wilson listened without interrupting. "That flight had been delayed 3 times. Passengers were angry. My supervisor was breathing down my neck. I'd been on my feet for 11 hours. Diane finally looked directly at Dr. Wilson, but none of that excuses what I did. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just trying to explain." Dr. Wilson nodded slowly. "I understand more than you might think. During my residency, I worked 36-hour shifts. Once, I was so tired that I yelled at a nurse for dropping a clipboard. I still remember the hurt in her eyes." "But you didn't slap her," Diane said bitterly. "No, I didn't," Dr. Wilson agreed. "But I've made mistakes too. We all have. The difference is that your mistake was caught on camera and shared with the world." The server returned with Dr. Wilson's coffee. They sat in silence until he left. "Why did you want to meet me?" Diane finally asked. "Was it curiosity, or did you want to see me grovel in person?" Dr. Wilson looked surprised. "Neither. I wanted to meet because I believe in restorative justice, not punishment. The public shaming you've experienced, losing your job, the death threats, none of that actually helps heal the harm that was done." "I don't understand." "I run a program at the hospital," Dr. Wilson explained. "It started after a medical error caused a patient's death. Instead of just firing the nurse responsible, we created a system for accountability that actually leads to healing and growth." Diane stared at her. "You want me in your program?" "I want to offer you a different path forward," Dr. Wilson said. "The airline has donated money to a foundation I started, a way for them to save face publicly without admitting any responsibility for how they handled the situation. That foundation runs workshops on bias in healthcare and other service industries." "And you want me to attend a workshop?" Diane asked, confusion evident in her voice. Dr. Wilson smiled. "Actually, I want to offer you a job. Once you've gone through the program yourself, I think your perspective would be valuable. You could help develop training specifically for people in high-stress service roles." Diane couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You want to hire me? After what I did to you?" "What you did was wrong," Dr. Wilson said firmly. "But it doesn't define who you are. And sometimes the people who've made the most visible mistakes have the most to teach others." For the first time in days, Diane felt something other than despair. It wasn't quite hope yet, more like the tiniest flicker of possibility. "Why would you do this for me?" she whispered. Dr. Wilson's expression grew serious. "Because change doesn't happen through punishment and shame. It happens through accountability and growth. I've seen too many lives destroyed when what we really need is healing for everyone involved." She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. "This has my personal number. Think about it. Talk to your family. If you decide this is something you want to try, call me." As Dr. Wilson stood to leave, Diane found her voice again. "Dr. Wilson, I am truly sorry. For everything." Dr. Wilson nodded. "I know. That's why we're having this conversation." As she watched the doctor walk away, Diane held the business card like it was something precious. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. Dr. Wilson had been clear that there would be accountability. But it was something Diane hadn't dared to hope for after that terrible day at the airport. It was a second chance. 6 months later, Diane sat in the green room of the Morning Light show, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The makeup artist had just finished with her, covering the dark circles that still appeared under her eyes on stressful days. And today was definitely stressful. 5 minutes, called a production assistant, poking her head through the door. Across the room, Dr. Wilson looked perfectly calm, reviewing notes on her tablet. She glanced up and caught Diane's anxious expression. "Remember, just speak from the heart," Dr. Wilson said. "That's all anyone can ask." Diane nodded, though her throat felt too dry to speak. How had she ended up here, about to appear on national television, the woman she'd once slapped? The last 6 months had been the hardest of her life. After that coffee shop meeting, Diane had accepted Dr. Wilson's offer. The program wasn't easy. 3 days a week, she attended workshops on bias, stress management, and conflict resolution. Twice a month, she met with a therapist. Once a week, she volunteered at a community center, working with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. The first few sessions had been brutal. Some participants recognized her from the video and were openly hostile. One woman had walked out, saying she refused to be in the same room as that racist flight attendant. Diane had almost quit that day. She'd called her sister in tears. "They hate me," she'd sobbed. "And they have every right to." "Then prove them wrong," Paddy had told her. "Show them who you really are." Slowly, day by day, Diane did just that. She stopped defending herself and started listening, really listening, to stories of discrimination, of snap judgments, of lives affected by split-second assumptions. She began to understand how her actions that day at the airport fit into a much larger pattern, one she'd been blind to before. 2 minutes, called the production assistant. Dr. Wilson stood and straightened her jacket. "Ready?" Diane took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." They walked together down the hallway toward the bright lights of the studio. The show's host, a woman with a warm smile and sharp eyes, greeted them. "Thank you both for being here," she said. "This is an important conversation." The floor director counted down. 3, 2, 1. "Good morning, America," the host began. "Today we have an extraordinary story of conflict, consequence, and ultimately, reconciliation. 6 months ago, a video went viral showing an airport confrontation between a flight attendant and a renowned neurosurgeon. What could have ended with criminal charges instead became the catalyst for a revolutionary program addressing bias in high-stress workplaces. Please welcome Dr. Maya Wilson and Diane Baker." The cameras turned to them, and Diane felt her heart racing. Millions of people were watching. People who had seen her at her worst moment. People who had sent her death threats. People who had decided they knew everything about her based on a 30-second video. "Dr. Wilson," the host began, "many were surprised when you declined to press charges after the incident. Can you tell us why?" Dr. Wilson nodded. "Our justice system is designed to punish, not to heal. I wasn't interested in punishment. What happened between Ms. Baker and me was a symptom of deeper problems: stress, bias, workplace pressures. Putting her in jail or suing her wouldn't have addressed any of those issues." "And Diane," the host turned to her, "you've now been through Dr. Wilson's program and are helping to expand it. What has that experience been like?" This was the moment Diane had been preparing for. She looked directly into the camera. "It's been the hardest thing I've ever done," she said honestly. "Harder than losing my job. Harder than the public shame. Because it forced me to really see myself, to examine biases I didn't even know I had." She paused, willing her voice to remain steady. "What I did that day was wrong. There's no excuse for it. But Dr. Wilson offered me something better than punishment. She offered me a chance to learn, to grow, and to help prevent others from making the same mistakes." The host leaned forward. "And now Atlantic Airways has adopted your training program for all their staff. How did that come about?" Dr. Wilson smiled. "They realized that firing one employee didn't solve the underlying issues. High stress, impossible schedules, inadequate support, these are systemic problems. Diane's perspective as someone who worked in that environment for 15 years has been invaluable in developing effective training." Throughout the interview, Diane felt herself relaxing slightly. They discussed the Foundation's work, the changes being implemented at the airline, and the thousands of service industry workers who had now gone through their program. As the segment neared its end, the host asked one final question. "Diane, what would you say to people who believe you don't deserve this second chance?" Diane had anticipated this question. It was the one that haunted her most nights. "I'd say they're entitled to that opinion," she replied quietly. "I can't control what others think of me. All I can do is work every day to be better than I was yesterday, and to help others do the same." After the cameras stopped rolling, Diane and Dr. Wilson walked back to the green room. "You did well," Dr. Wilson said. "That wasn't easy." Diane smiled slightly. None of this has been easy, but it's been right. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patty. You were amazing. So proud of you. For the first time in months, Diane felt something like peace. Her life had been shattered by one terrible moment, but from those broken pieces, something new was emerging. Something stronger, more aware, more purposeful. As they gathered their belongings, Dr. Wilson touched her arm. Ready for our meeting with the hospital board this afternoon. They're voting on expanding the program to 5 more cities. Diane nodded. Ready. They walked out together, no longer defined by that moment in the airport, but by what they had chosen to build from it instead.